Hey, thanks for checking out this episode of Check Out My Dad Pod. And thanks to my guest on the first part of this podcast, and that was Glenn Westfield. And if you are just watching the video, I recommend you check out the entire podcast in Apple or Google or Spotify because Glenn tells a story that I will never know. If you don't know, Glenn's black. I'm a white dude. And he and his wife just had a baby 7 months ago. And to tell the story about what it's like to, even fathom, I think one of the hardest things for people like me, white people, I don't ever really worry or have any concern whatsoever about a whole lot of racist behavior coming the way of my children, just because of the way things are. But I wanted to have Glenn on because of everything going on right now with the George Floyd protests or the George Floyd riots or whatever you want to call them. His story was really, really great. And I appreciate him, vocalizing it. I know it's not his favorite thing in the world to do. I don't think Glenn loved to do that long form of an interview. So I recommend you check out the full podcast and hear that story and hear his tale about becoming a dad and what it was like for him the first time that he became a father. That's one story. I'm going to tell you a short story about something that happened to me. Now, last week, right after I recorded this, I woke the babies up, and then this happened. So, if you are new to the podcast, you haven't been around the podcast very much, I have 3 babies that I stay home with. My wife works, and I stay at home. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I've got the twins who are now 4 months, 5 months soon. They'll be 5 months on June 6th here in 2020. And I have the 16-month-old girl who was born January of 2019 as well. And they are all up part of the day together. They're all awake part of the day together. And last week, when I got done with this, we'll get done, I upload the podcast, and then I go get them ready to have their lunch in an hour or two. So I get done they get done about 10:30 sleeping. All 3 of them wake them up. It's part of our schedule. And then lunch hits at noon for the big one. The little ones have their bottles, and then we chill out and whatever. But as I am feeding the big one, this story might be called the lunchtime blowout. And if stories of poop make you uncomfortable, I'm sorry. Because that's what this really is about. I survived a lunchtime blowout. It was my first time surviving a lunchtime blowout, and I'm proud to say that I survived said lunchtime blowout. So Britton is eating in the chair in the back of the room, right? And she's sitting in her high chair, and the babies are on the mat down in the other end of the nursery. And I'm like, oh, I think somebody filled their pants. And that's not a big deal. Like, poopy diapers used to weird me out, but they don't anymore because I've been doing this for so long. And so I put some food on Britton's tray, and I walk over and I start to change the diaper of the little girl, Miller, our daughter. And I happen to notice that wasn't your average diaper change. That diaper change involved it coming up the back. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? What do I do right here? I know a couple of weeks ago I told you the story of my son actually pooping in my hand. That was gross. But this time I have the daughter who pooped herself is now starting to cry. She is causing Miles, her twin brother, to start to cry. And in the back, I've got Britton, who is starting to cry because she wants more food. So what do you do when you have opened up the poopy diaper? You've got poop up her back. You've got poop. The onesie is done so. That thing's got to get cleaned. But I can't leave, you can't leave the poop. You can't take the daughter. I can't take the poop covered daughter and just leave her. I'm sorry, and leave the boy with the poopy diaper and the poopy onesie because he could roll over. And then I have to start my process all over again. I have to get food to the girl in the back because she has to eat. She's got to finish eating her whatever I was feeding her that day. And so I literally, like, all of this is happening at the same time. And this is one of those things, like, it's a total juggling act when you stay at home with kids, multiples in my case. I actually, at one point, I'm holding the baby up, and I breathe, and I take a second, and I say, what's the most important thing right now? What do I have to do first? So what I do is, since Miles isn't terribly mobile yet, I move the poopy diaper and the onesie far enough away where I know if he rolls over, he's not in. If he rolls over again, he's still not in the diaper. And then at that moment, I pick up my Miller, or I'm still holding Miller, so I'm doing this with one hand here, and then I go over to the wash tub that we have in our laundry room that's right by there, and I kind of hose her down, if that's the best way to put it. And then I bring her back into one of the baby's rooms that's right there. And I just say, you know what? This changing table, this is going to get dirty. There's going to be poop on this thing, and I'm going to have to wash that as well. Meanwhile, I have two other criers that are going crazy in the other room as I'm trying to wipe her down, clean her off. Bath night was the night before. We had just gotten them clean. And so I finally button it all up, get her done, go back in the other room. Now I have to wash the mat. I have to wash the changing table. I have to wash the changing table sheet. I have to get the onesie. And most importantly, I have to get that poopy diaper out of the room, because who knows what happens if one kid rolls into said poopy diaper. It is a maze. It is crazy. It is wild. I've got all these kids spread out. I go drop a little food on Britton's tray. And it's at this moment I find it took me about 20 minutes. The whole process took about 20 minutes. And you breathe. And then there was a knock at the door, and it was my sister-in-law, Molly. And I feel like she opened the door, and I must have looked like hell. Because she was dropping off some hand-me-down pants or shorts for Britton, because her two girls are out of those sizes. And I must have looked like I just ran a marathon, or I was exhausted, or whatever. Because she kind of had that look like, you okay? Are you going to be all right? Are you okay? What just happened? And I had to explain to her that I survived the lunchtime blowout. My first one. Haven't had one since, knock on wood, Hopefully we're going to be clear of those, but I'm sure it will happen again. Again, if you missed my conversation with Glenn Westfield, or you want to check out any episode of Check Out My Dad Pod, we're on Apple, we're on Google, we're on Spotify, wherever you find your podcast, we are there. My thanks to Glenn for joining me. That was really a great conversation, and I appreciate him coming on. Thanks to you for listening. Thanks to you for subscribing. We're on YouTube, Insta. We're all over. You know where we are. Find us wherever you find your podcasts, and we'll do it again coming up next week. Don't forget, Podcastathon is this weekend. It's going to be all over Facebook and all over Twitter. Go to wisconsinpodcast.com, where we're going to be doing these shows live. Me and dozens of other podcasters going to be doing our podcasts live on Saturday and Sunday to help out those that are in need, to help out those that are hungry in Wisconsin after the COVID-19 fiasco just really decimated a lot of people. So make sure you're tuning in for that. I would appreciate if you would. Until then, I'm Mike Wickett. We'll do it again next week. This has been Check Out My Dad Pod. As always, #family first. Thanks for listening to Check Out My Dad Pod. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you find yours. Thanks to the band from Silverman Sound Studios. And if you have any feedback, feel free to find us on Facebook. Search Mike Wickett Podcasts, or you can send me an email, mikewickettpodcasts@gmail.com.